What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over some tips to help you play aggressive in Fortnite OG. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and comment down below what the most kills you've gotten in a single match is so far in Fortnite OG. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is the items you carry, because I think if you do want to play aggressive and try to get a lot of kills this season and just get in a lot of action, you're probably going to want to run double mobility or mobility and some sort of cover item like the bunkers. This season is like very punishing if you get like caught in bad timing, or when pushing something like somebody just doesn't go your way, or getting third partied. There's just a lot that can go wrong in a given situation or match this season. So having double mobility or mobility and bunkers will allow you to deal with like as many different situations as possible, because like I don't know about you guys this season, but I feel like I've been getting in way more awkward fights than typical, and that's why the bunkers can be so good, because a lot of people think of like the bunkers as a purely defensive item, but there's a lot of fights where just like throwing a bunker down in the fight gives you a huge advantage on the person you're fighting, because this map doesn't have as much cover. It's harder to push people, and like I said, you can't get like caught by awkward timing more this season than I feel like some past seasons. Also, like, I feel like it's harder to get good AR tags this season. It can certainly happen, but the ARs are just less consistent than they were for a lot of Chapter 4. So you might need to kind of like beam somebody a little bit, push up, beam them again, and then finally go in for the kill. So bunkers are really good for that sort of thing. Not only, giving you cover to play off, but you can kind of throw it down in between you and the opponent to create some cover while you're pushing them. It's just a lot you can do with them. So I like to run either grappler and shockwaves if I'm able to get enough shockwaves, or grappler and bunkers. That's typically what I run. I wouldn't mind using like grappler, rift to go if I have to, or shockwaves, bunkers if I have to, but it's just like the grappler is nice because it's a really good mobility item, and you find it and then you have one until it runs out, whereas like shockwaves, you have to find several spawns of it to like have a full stack, So that's why if I'm going to just run one mobility item, it's typically the grappler, because it will tend to last longer, but I do think shockwaves are probably a better mobility item. The next thing you can kind of do to help yourself play aggressive, or just kind of like you need to keep this in the back of your mind if you are going to play aggressive, is just be mindful of third parties. I'm not really sure like what it is about this season, but I see players complaining about third parties much more than usual, and that's just going to happen. It's kind of the nature of BRs that there will be third parties from time to time. Like, it's just, the nature of a big free-for-all. It is what it is. But one of the most helpful things you can do is just be aware that at any point in time you can get third partied. So try to play not to, expose yourself to those third parties as much, or just kind of try to predict where they're going to be coming from. And just ending your fights quickly can go a long way in limiting you getting third partied. If you're just going to sit there and like trade AR shots with an opposing player for like an incredibly long time and spray all their cover out, then it's more likely you get third partied. But if you're, decisive when you get early tags and you're able to push that kill, eliminate that player quickly, your odds of getting third partied are going to be lower, but there's pretty much nothing you can do to not get third partied other than not fight and just hide all game. It's just the nature of the game. If you fight, you're going to get third partied. If you play aggressive and get into a lot of fights, you're probably going to get third partied more. It just comes down to being prepared for it and knowing how to respond to it. And this is also why it's good to have double mobility, or mobility in some sort of cover item, because it allows you to reset fights better, or kind of like change the odds of a fight. If you do get caught in bad timing, you can throw your bunker down, shockwave out of there, whatever. I just, be aware that it's going to happen, know that it's going to happen, accept that it's going to happen. Try not to get too tunnel vision on opposing players, or like if you have somebody running from you, and you're probably not going to get that kill anyways, then maybe just let them go. Also, I think one thing that a lot of players might be struggling with that's causing them to get third partied this season is they get in a lot of incredibly long-ranged AR fights that just aren't going anywhere. Unless you have like the scoped AR, then maybe, but even then the fire rate on it isn't very good. So there's a lot of situations where like you could tag somebody with the scope there, but you're probably not going to get that kill, and if you're using the bloom based ARs, the third person ones, like over 100 meters away off somebody who's on like has good cover or something, that's probably not going to be a kill you're going to get. So you probably just want to let that go, and that's going to reduce how often you're getting third partied. One of the biggest things that I can just, if I could give any one piece of advice for this season in Zero Build, it would be to use the Riffs. So I'll have a map on screen now. If you've watched any of my videos this season, I'm sure you've heard me talk about it, but I think it's like the biggest deal this season is that there's Riffs all around the map in Zero Build, and these could be huge in helping you like get around the map faster, reduce your time in those super open areas, because there is a few Riffs at Salty and another one in like pretty much the center of the map, like in between Salty and Loot Lake, that will allow you to get out of that, like, you know, it'll help you get out of the bad areas, the super open areas where you don't want to be in Zero Build, help you get around the map faster, and it will also help you find people, because if you're not, you know, flying around in the air, it's easier for you to kind of see everything around you and see where the other players are. And then also, you know, maybe you see one player, don't just land on them, look around and see if there's any any potential third parties coming as well. These rifts are just huge, and I would recommend taking advantage of them as much as you can. I feel like my enjoyment of this season and like ability to play this season aggressively in Zero Build definitely got a lot better once I realized that these rifts are there and that they're infinite. So sometimes they do go invisible after being used, but they're still there and you can still use them. It's just like a glitch that they go invisible. All the natural rifts are like unlimited this season. I think that's the word I was looking for. I called them invincible earlier, but they're unlimited. You can use them over and over and over again. They go invisible sometimes, but you can keep using them. You just got to kind of know where they are. And the more you play and the more you're aware of these, the easier it's going to be for you just to like chain them and get around the map quickly. There's also a trick you can do with the Rift to Go, where if you use it as you mantle, you'll basically mantle out of it, allowing you to just like drop back down. You don't get put into the sky, and you could just take another item and go through the Rift to Go. So if you find a Rift to Go and you don't want to carry it, you can do this mantle trick to, you know, spawn a Rift and go wherever you want to go, while also not dedicating an inventory slot to it. And the timing for this is just that I try to hit my mantle button as I see the Rift timer at like 0.1 or 0.2 seconds. You know how you use a Rift and then you see that countdown? Once you see that 0.1, 0.2, you hit it, you hit your mantle to mantle, and then you should Rift mantle out of it. This is just something that you kind of got to practice and get the timing for. Another huge thing that I think will help a lot of players this season is just learning the flow of the map. I've had a lot of comments of players kind of like saying they don't really know what to do this season because of the lack of mid-match objectives, because for a lot of Chapter 4, everything was kind of decided for you from the moment you started playing the game. You know, the vaults were going to spawn in second zone, or rift tower, or rift beacons when those were a thing, or radio towers, whatever they were called. But that's going to spawn in second zone, and then combat cache is going to spawn in third, and then island in fourth, and then from that point, it's going to be endgame. You didn't really have to make any decisions throughout mid-game in Chapter 4. A lot of it was just kind of already decided for you if you were following those mid-match objectives, whereas this season you really need to learn the flow of the map, because while it is random and it can vary from game to game, a lot of the players are going to kind of rotate towards the more central locations. So areas like Salty Springs, Dusty Divot, the diner above Dusty Divot, Tilted Towers, Loot Lake, all of those areas are typically going to be somewhat populated because a lot of POIs will rotate into them. Like Salty, the entire kind of like bottom and right side of the map will tend to rotate towards Salty. Tilted, a lot of the left side locations tend to kind of rotate towards like Tilted and Loot Lake, and then a lot of the top right and right side locations tend to kind of rotate towards Dusty. So the more you kind of play the map and understand these rotations, again, it can vary from game to game. You might get in a weird game where just Fatal Fields is hot for some reason, but oftentimes these more central locations are going to be the hotter areas. So if you want to find players, these are the locations you're going to want to go to. If you're, you know, if you loot Pleasant and then you see, oh, Junk Junction is still in zone, I'm going to rotate there. It's probably not a good play, and it's going to be more your fault for why you're not finding people. Whereas like if you rotate from Pleasant to Tilted or Loot Lake, and then from there towards Dusty or Salty, that's probably going to be your best bet to find more players. So like just learning the rotations of the map and where other POIs are likely to rotate into is going to be like a huge skill in terms of predicting where players are going to be and finding that traffic. Supply drops will often have, you know, people going for them as well, but that's not always guaranteed. And when you do kind of get into some of the more later zones where not as much of the map is occupied by the zone, typically the edge of zone that borders those hot areas that I was talking about is going to be populated. So if you have a zone that's just all the way in the bottom right corner, that top left part of zone kind of bordering like the more center edge of the map is going to be the area where most of the map is flowing into. Just naturally, it's the way things go. But again, this is just something you kind of learn as you play. But games are pretty dead this season, and like I said, the games can vary. You can have weird matches, and the fact that games are pretty dead this season, sometimes there won't be as much you can do to find people, which kind of brings us to our final point, which is that, like, even if you want to play super aggressive, there's probably going to be times this season where you just have to, like, play pretty slow, because the mid game does die out pretty quick, and the way zones are this season is just not very good. I think one of the better changes we got in Chapter 4 was how they reworked zones, but it just, sometimes the game dies out, and you might have, like, a pretty large zone with, like, 5 people left, and no matter how aggressive you play, you're probably not going to find those people because it's such a large area. So knowing when to kind of, like, slow it down and play a bit more passive can be huge in winning this season, even if you do want to play aggressive, because like I said, there's only 5 people in a huge zone. You can run around all the entire time. You might not find them. Your likelihood of getting, like, shot, you know, or third party, not really third party, but like caught off guard and engaged on, it just gets higher. So once it gets kind of to the point where the game is more dead and we're in the later game, I try to just play for positioning in zone. And that's, you know, tends to be what has been best for me, because once the games get really dead, doesn't matter how aggressive you play, your potential for kills doesn't really change. If there's like 50 people left, then playing aggressive and trying to find people will net you more kills because there's more people to find. But once there's very few people left in the lobby, kind of doesn't really matter how aggressive you play. There's only so many kills on the map at that point, you know? So you might as well just put yourself in the best situation to win, because that's likely going to be how you're going to get the kills anyways. But that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found this helpful, informative, interesting. Biggest points: use bunkers, use the Riffs, or carry double mobility if you don't want to use bunkers, and just being able to have those options to reset fights and push fights makes it a lot easier to play aggressive than this season, I've found, than when I tried to use just like a traditional 3-gun setup. But that is going to be it for this video. Let me know what you guys, what the most kills you've gotten in a single match so far in Fortnite OG is, and if you did enjoy this, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.